Morning, all of you online students. My teaming fine. Hello, Madhavi. Madhavi, we are going live. Yes, for 1 or 2 days. Hi, Prerna, Danish, Shweta, Anurag, Divya, Priya, Ayush. Morning, all of you. Yesterday, we had the first class on IR, International Relations. And it was a kind of a overview of the history of India's foreign policy evolution. Started with pre-independence developments. What was the philosophy of post-independence guided by our first Prime Minister? The vision of Jawaharlal Nehru, also called as the Nehruvian Consensus. Or Nehruvian Consensus ke kya objectives the? A very important pillar of Nehruvian Consensus was that India wanted to show its solidarity for anti-colonialism, anti-racism, anti-imperialism. We wanted to develop a kind of a world order which was not exploitative of the developing world. So, lot of roots in Gandhian philosophy, morality, and the objectives around collective security, disarmament. ये सारे ना keywords हैं. आपके answers में ये सब keywords दिखने चाहिए. When you are summarizing the notes, do not try to substitute these words. These words are taken straight from the documents. So ये words, vocabulary आप answer में use करें, all of you. And then, of course, we talked a bit about the NAM. What was the NAM? The objectives. So there is debate between NAM as idealism, extreme morality-based India's thinking for the world order. And the other story says, it was also very realistic for India. There was a realism because given the situation India was in, a country coming out of colonial power, poverty, we did not have industries, we did not have much of material or economic power to influence the world. Those conditions may the only way we could have some role in global leadership was by these kind of values that we talked about. And it did succeed because ultimately I gave a list to you how we were able to fend off the power block politics, how we were able to fight off joining either side during the Cold War. We did ensure that there was pressure on the global leaders under disarmament. We have talked about how we fought against the apartheid. So NAM did serve its purpose to some extent, but gradually with the coming of Indira Gandhi and the economic and political situation changing for the country, there was a shift. So Indira Gandhi was the first one, 1971 peace treaty with Soviets, the 71 Bangladesh war, the nuclear tests, Pokhran wala 1974 mein. So all of that kind of reset our priorities as a developing nation, not typically the Nehruvian model of non-alignment that we had thought about. Uske baad, we have changes, we have seen not much, but we had some changes during Rajiv Gandhi, but two major phases. One was the time under P.V. Narasimha Rao, then we have changes during Vajpayee government, and then of course we also had Dr. Manmohan Singh's phase, the UPA government, and how our foreign policy and foreign relationship changed. So starting from P.V. Narasimha Rao, the economic model became more important, Look East policy becomes more important, and we're trying to engage more and more with US. With the Vajpayee government, so there was a bit of balancing act going on. Balancing act because at that time, we had trying to counter the rising Pakistan neighborhood issues that we had. So nuclear tests, the second Pokhran 1998 mein hua. And along with that, Vajpayee government, to be very fair, they did try to approach Pakistan to different summits and goodwill gestures. So Lahore summit was very important. But then the Kargil war of 99 changed a lot of things there. Uske baad we did engage. So that was the Vajpayee government. And during the Manmohan Singh government, okay, where again the focus was back on economics, and the Indo-US जो civil nuclear deal था वो बहुत important था. Okay, and finally now what we call as the phase of renewed engagement, energetic engagement, where India is now trying to play a very different active role engaging the global powers, our neighborhood. We are gone beyond the traditional military wala environment we're talking about issues related to economic linkages, military alliances. India has kind of entered when we entered the Quad. It's not a typical military bloc, but it has an element of military also, Khaskar with what we call as the Malabar military joint exercises, the US and Japan. Just a quick brief that we had, how our foreign policy has evolved, it has changed. So I believe you should not have much doubt on this. Priya, a book list, I said, is a tricky thing here because a lot of things are current affairs and the questions asked will be a lot of interpretations. Interpretations में आपको कहीं ना कहीं जो think tanks हैं, you have to know what that version is. So one book I can recommend, I said, is The Choices by Shiv Shankar Menon. Another one is The Way Forward by our present foreign minister, okay, Jayashankar ji. And a third book I talked about was Does the Elephant Dance by David Mellon. It's an outside view of how India is rising. It's an older book. It's not a recent book, but it gives a good perspective, a commentary on how the evolution has happened. And then I said, do keep your eye on some of the articles of Harsh Pant. I forgot to mention one important writer is by C. Rajgopal. Okay, so Raja Mohan Rajgopal. So his articles are important. He writes for Indian Express also. Okay, so Raj Mohan's articles will be important. Please do look up those articles also. Note summarize करने के लिए नहीं मिल रहा है. कृष्णा, आप क्लास फॉलो करें, उसी से नोट समराइज करो. Hi Anand, good morning. Okay, I gave you a quick perspective of India's evolving foreign policy. Now we'll take up the specifics. Specifics में, I think I will first discuss the NAM itself. Yesterday we had some references to NAM. Today I'll give you NAM का relevance क्या है, आज की date में how does it stand. Okay, NAM. So NAM is, okay, any questions online? Any questions? Anybody? Any doubts here? All good? Okay, fine then. Let's continue. So NAM, okay, is non-aligned movement. A term movement, ये थोड़ा बाद में use हुआ. Okay, it was earlier called as the non-aligned countries. The term that they used was NAC. NAC was more popularly used. And 3-4 points here. I said NAM was very much an initiative by India. Okay, one of the main person, the proponents of this idea was Jawaharlal Nehru, and somewhere it was aligned with the idea of Nehruvian consensus. You have used this word with all those phrases here, and the objective of NAM was to avoid the power blocks of the world. It was for avoiding any type of global war. It was for peaceful resolution of conflicts, and it was a type of a platform. It was a platform for the third world countries. And it was a symbol of Asia Africa solidarity. Okay, write down these words, please, all of you. So NAM का roots था Nehruvian consensus में. Nehruvian ideas where the objective was we have to avoid the power blocks, not get trapped into the Cold War politics. We should not get trapped into the Cold War politics. It was to avoid another global war. World War I, World War II was very devastating for us. Avoid that. We wanted a peaceful resolution of conflicts. Somewhere dialogue was more important. Okay, getting into summits, talking through the conflicts was more important. And the platform, the NAM was like a platform for the third world countries. Okay, and a very important element was the Asia-Africa solidarity. And मैंने बताया था yesterday that इसका beginning was in Bandung. Bandung 1955 Bandung conference mein this idea was mooted and supported there, and this was in the backdrop of the Korean War. So India was pretty scared there that developing countries will get sucked into another of those conflicts of the world. So Korean War ke backdrop mein North Korea and South Korea का जो war हुआ था, North Korea was supported by Russia and China, and South Korea में US का involvement था, and US was pressing for a military response. US was pressing for military retaliation. Essentially, North Korea was trying to invade and capture South Korea. Okay, so India did not support a US का military intervention. At the same time, India did not support the invasion of South Korea either. This backdrop mein, okay, we said that we need some kind of a platform so that we don't get sucked into another world war. The Bandung conference ke baad mein, the more important one that we had was the Belgrade conference. Okay, यहाँ पर the NAM was kind of formalized. This was 1961, if I'm not wrong. Yes. 1961 Belgrade. This was the first NAM conference. First NAM conference. And India, along with some other countries, we were the founding nations. So remember, the founding leaders kaun the? The founders kaun the? So India, okay, Jawaharlal Nehru, we had Yugoslavia. Okay, we have Indonesia, and we also had Ghana. So the leaders ka naam likhiya, Jawaharlal Nehru for India. We also had Egypt. Gamal Nasser. Egypt was also one of important first founded nations. So India, Jawaharlal Nehru, Joseph Broz Tito, okay, Joseph Broz Tito, he was the leader of Yugoslavia. Indonesia, it was Sukarno. In Ghana, it was Kwame Nkrumah, Kwame, Kwame, it's Nkrumah. Okay, Nkrumah. Let me rewrite this again. Nkrumah. Kwame, okay, Nkrumah was the leader of Ghana, and Egypt mein it was Gamal Abdel Nasser. Gamal Abdel Nasser. So ये कुछ names हैं. I do not see they'll ask you this, but इतना पता होना चाहिए. You should know these names who were the founders of the NAM movement. In India, of course, Jawaharlal Nehru. Okay, India, Jawaharlal Nehru, the founder members of the NAM. Right further, okay, the whole declaration, the declaration of NAM and NAM as a global movement was a much later development. The declaration of NAM and NAM as a global movement was a later declaration in the 1970s. In the 1970s, with the objective of preserving, ये keywords हैं, preserving national independence, national sovereignty, territorial integrity, national independence, national sovereignty, territorial integrity, and security of the non-aligned countries. ये declaration था. It's called as the Havana Declaration of 1979. Okay, the Havana Declaration, Cuba. Havana is Cuba of 1979. See, what happens is, जब आप answers लिखते हैं, although we might know some of these words, but we forget the exact vocabulary, exact words. So I am very specific on this. Language change ना करें आप लोग. So every word has importance. National independence, national sovereignty. Okay, we're talking about territorial integrity, security of the non-aligned members, and the objective included the struggle for. Continue. The objective included struggle against, rather. The objective included struggle against. Again, वो तीन keywords हैं. Struggle against imperialism, colonialism, and racism. Imperialism, colonialism, and racism. Okay, a very important point. देखो, NAM was not a forum of neutrality. What do I mean by neutrality? कि कुछ भी झगड़ा हो, हम कोई side नहीं लेंगे. That's neutral. Okay, so countries like Switzerland have been neutral. Okay, Norway in the World War II for some time was neutral until it got sucked into the World War. Okay, politics of Germany and Britain. Okay, so NAM was not a grouping of neutral countries. Neutral का मतलब है हम कुछ नहीं बोलने वाले. ऐसा नहीं है. We will have our voice. Okay, we will support what we think is right. Okay, neutral का मतलब है it's almost like a disinterest. Remember this. एक star mark लगाइए, right down here. The NAM movement was not a statement of pure political neutrality on global issues. Not a statement on pure political neutrality on global issues. Okay, NAM stood for peaceful intervention in world politics. NAM stood for peaceful intervention in world politics. Just think of Ukraine का war में, you not call India as neutral, right? Neutral का मतलब है almost disinterested. हम ना इधर ही बोलेंगे ना उधर बोलेंगे. But we are making a stance. Like when Modi ji goes and say that this is not an age of war, it's an age of peace. He's making a stance. He's saying that we don't support the idea of a Russian invasion of Ukraine. Okay, we are making a statement. At the same time, we say that we cannot be aloof. We have to look our national interests also. So we have whatever economic relationship with Russia that we have. So we are not being neutral. Remember this. हम intervene कर रहे हैं. In fact, increasingly, India wants to play a kind of mediating role if possible. Okay. So NAM is not a forum of neutrality. Neutrality, I said, has an element of disinterest. Okay, हम उसकी बात नहीं कर रहे हैं. The idea is NAM countries will not get trapped in the global war. NAM countries will not be forced to side with some countries just because of some earlier affiliations. इसका वो objective था. Okay, another very important point is outside the UN, NAM is the largest global okay, a global association of countries. United Nations में approximately 190 odd countries हैं, NAM में 120 odd countries हैं. Okay, NAM, and अभी भी NAM है, it's not that NAM is over अभी भी. So outside the UN, NAM is the largest, okay, you can say global bloc hai, global association, NAM hai. And almost all developing countries are part of the NAM. In some ways, the NAM ka group hai, it's a very big voting bloc. Like right now, NAM countries are a very large voting bloc in United Nations General Assembly. United Nations General Assembly. Okay, so see, देखो, I remember one of the statement that said that in an association, just because something is not as responsive does not mean it is irrelevant. Okay, आज के date में NAM is not playing a very big role, but this does not mean that NAM is irrelevant. Remember this. Okay, अभी NAM का role change होगा. NAM will need to redefine itself. NAM will need to relook into some of the priorities. So don't write off NAM. Unlike India is now going soft on the NAM, but my suggestion is don't write off NAM, because NAM continues to a very big block. और काफी लंबा history है. Starting from 1950s से अभी तक लेके चले, तो half a century का एक history बन चुका है. 50-60 साल का history है. Okay, and where we have had some solidarity. Let this point down that in today's geopolitics, NAM continues to stand by peaceful resolution of conflicts. NAM continues to stand by peaceful resolution of conflicts and represents okay, its allegiance to, its support of, and represents its allegiance to a rule-based world order, as in accordance with United Nations, okay, Charter. It stands with its allegiance to a rule-based world order in accordance with United Nations Charter, UN Charter, and it represents political, economic, social and cultural diversity. Political, economic, social and cultural diversity makes NAM still relevant in many ways. Makes NAM still relevant in many ways. Although its role needs to be redefined. And the movement needs to be re-energized. NAM continues, next point. NAM continues to represent multilateralism. NAM continues to represent multilateralism. Okay. Promotion of collective security. And work for global peace. ठीक है, तो आपके आंसर्स के एनालिसिस में whenever we talk about the way forward for anything, you can have couple of lines on NAM could be one of the way forward. Okay, NAM could be one of the options for the world to explore. For simple reason, it's a large bloc, long history hai, its ideals are still relevant for a global peace. It has worked. Now, quickly, एक box में लिख लो. some of the contributions of NAM kya raha hai, and that could be the backdrop of how you can promote the idea of, okay, well, contribution of NAM mein, so 4 or 5 contributions. Number one was that it was very successful in the movement against apartheid. It was very successful in the movement against apartheid. साउथ अफ्रीका में जो रेसिज्म एपार्थाइड था, उसके रिजोल्यूशन में it played a very important role against apartheid. Next is the NAM countries. The NAM countries have been a pressure block for UN reforms. Have been a pressure block in UN reforms, and have repeatedly stood up against the domination of US or Russia. Dominance of US or Russia. Okay. के बाद the Cold War politics and antagonism, was well balanced by the NAM. Some people say because so many countries did not take active side, that's one reason why, okay, maybe we could avoid a full-fledged war during the Cold War. वो जो balancing act था NAM का, वो successful रहा है. Okay, Cold War conflicts. Okay, we did not allow for the Cold War conflicts to escalate and become a proper nuclear war. Okay, these were the benefits that we had from the NAM. Okay, and NAM continues to stand for global disarmament. NAM continues to stand for global disarmament. India का position क्या है NAM में? Okay, what is NAM? What is the relevance of NAM? What were the contributions of NAM? And briefly, what has been India's position in NAM? Okay, so over time, India is no longer as strong leadership, is no longer as strong leadership position in the NAM movement. There has been a dilution of, some dilution of, okay, NAM-based approach. Dilution of NAM-based approach. Because 3-4 things happened. Okay, 3-4 things happened. Number one is that India's commitment was for global disarmament, but India is now a declared nuclear power. India's commitment for global disarmament, but India is a declared nuclear power. वहां पर थोड़ा ambiguity है. But remember, India continues to stand for, okay, complete nuclear disarmament. Okay, तो वहां पर एक हो गया. Number two, India is now a very active member of G20 group. India is a very active member of G20 group. G20 group. Okay, and in recent years, India has been very finely balancing. India has been very finely balancing its US-Russian relationship. US-Russian relationship vis-a-vis the rise of China. Vis-a-vis the rise of China. Okay. Third point is, during the Indian wars, India-China war and India-Pakistan war, India-China war and India-Pakistan war, India did not have full support of NAM countries. India did not have the full support of the NAM countries. जैसे इंडिया पाकिस्तान वॉर 65 और 71 में, in India-Pakistan war of 65 and 71, Indonesia and Egypt did not support India. Indonesia and Egypt did not support India. Similarly, 1961-62 war of China, 1961 and 62 war of China, Ghana and Indonesia did not support India. Did not support India. Somewhere we find that the founder members have not been steadfast in supporting India's NAM objectives. And recent times mein, India as a member of the Quad group, also dilutes India's position in NAM. A Quad group and also mention SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. SCO may be India ka membership hai. Okay, so this results in dilution of India's NAM position. Again, and then I said, Venezuela में जो heads of government का meeting हुआ था, उसमें for the first time India did not represent through its head of state. Modi ji did not attend the Venezuela NAM summit. Okay, otherwise, this is a statement that founders. वैसे भी आज की डेट में Yugoslavia is now disintegrated, right? Egypt, Yugoslavia, Ghana, Indonesia, they're no longer the force that we had thought they would have become. This is the present state of NAM. But conclusion, remember this, isko box mein dal dena isko. Okay, what is India's one? But the conclusion is that NAM as an idea, NAM as a vision for the world, NAM as an idea, NAM as a vision for the world, जिसमें कि peaceful world है, equitable world है, peaceful world, equitable world, okay, a rule-based order, okay, supporting social and cultural diversity, okay, plus the economic growth of all developing countries, plus the economic development or growth of all developing countries can become the new agenda of the NAM. It can become the new agenda of. Okay. So I think that's good enough to write an essay on what is NAM, India's position in NAM, what did NAM succeed in, what values NAM stands for, and what is India's current thinking about NAM. So as of now, definitely, NAM stands to some extent compromised, but let us not write it off. Okay? Okay. Take up a fresh page. Now we'll discuss a concept called as Indo-Pacific. Before I move on towards the bilateral relationships and talk about what developments, ये कुछ concepts पता होना चाहिए. As I gave you the evolution overview of India's foreign policy, we had some conversations on NAM, which was one of the founding concepts. Now let us discuss this concept called as Indo-Pacific. Okay, and then I'll talk about. तो पहले आप story सुन लीजिए आप. Now see, if you look at the geopolitics, and geopolitics, the way we know it, is largely a development of the 20th century. Okay, हालांकि as long as the world existed, as long as the countries have traded, as long as countries have fought wars, तो कुछ ना कुछ geopolitics हमेशा रहा है. Abhishek, good morning. Okay, geopolitics has always been there. But the geopolitics, the way we know it right now, I can trace it to 20th century, खासकर the developments from the world wars. Uske pehle, of course, the colonial. If you look at the history of geopolitics, the near recent history of geopolitics. So broadly, I will talk about the European and more importantly, जो UK, Britain का colonial domination था, colonial domination. Okay, we can talk about a rise of the US and Russia. Okay, we know about the Europe's wars, World War I, World War II, and whatever we know of the post-World War II, followed by, okay, the globalization that we have today. If I talk about the recent history of geopolitics, largely यही events हैं. And as a recent history, I'm talking about mostly the 20th century के developments and maybe the late 19th century. Okay, is the recent history of geopolitics. I repeat, the European colonial domination and European domination में खासकर the UK, Britain का domination, the rise of US and Russia, Europe's wars, World War I, World War II, जिसमें France है, okay, जिसमें Germany है, okay, and post World War II, उसके बाद whatever we have seen in recent globalization days, this is what we have had. Now, ये पूरे history में, okay, the two important oceans. Shweta, I am continuing from what we did yesterday. That's why I had to continue at a pace. Okay, Shweta? Be alert, you'll get it, don't worry. Okay, so what I'm speaking, I'm writing here, keep pace. Others are keeping pace, keep pace here. Okay, let's come back here. So I said, this is by and large the history of the recent geopolitics. And in all this recent geopolitics, the two oceans which have played a very important role, it is the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. Historically, you'll see that the Atlantic Ocean was a lot around economy. Going back to the slave trade times, the trade between Europe and Anglo-America, okay, North Atlantic was very, very important. Okay, it was the center of industrial revolution. Economy mein, okay, Atlantic Ocean industrial revolution tha. Atlantic Ocean was the trade between Europe and Anglo-America tha. Okay, Atlantic Ocean also was part of the world wars. Okay, खासकर World War II में, okay, Germany and France, okay, and Britain and US, Atlantic Ocean has been very, very important. And the Pacific Ocean importance largely was again in World War II. World War II, you know about the Northern Pacific. We had the Pearl Harbor bombing, the Battle of Midway, the Battle of Philippines, okay, rise of Japan. The Pacific Ocean ka very important role was during the World War II. We know about the Pearl Harbor. Okay, we know about the Battle of Midway Islands. Battle of Midway. We know about the Battle of the Philippines. The rise of Japan. ये पूरे history में these two oceans have played a very important role. All of you keep writing as I speak, okay? Okay, a very important role in the geopolitics was the role of Atlantic Ocean and the role of Pacific Ocean. In fact, if you talk about world wars, in the world wars, Okay, both 1 and 2 talk about them. In both the cases, navies have played a very important role. The navies have played, plus of course, World War II mein, we also had the role of the Air Force. But navies have played a very important role. Aircraft carriers, submarines, destroyers, frigates, बहुत important रहा है. And इस सारे story में, the Indian Ocean, okay, was largely not as actively involved. Okay, to compare with Atlantic Ocean and you compare with the Pacific Ocean, Indian Ocean का इतना involvement नहीं रहा है, not as actively involved. Okay, but there are theories, and there are commentaries. There are commentaries that have given Indian Ocean as a prospective, okay, a future region for development and for conflicts. They have given the ideas. Indian Ocean is a prospective region, a future ka region hai, is a prospective, a future region for development and for conflicts. One of the earliest person who talked about this was an admiral called as Alfred Mahan. Alfred Mahan, he has talked about the importance of Indian Ocean. So काफी theories में रहा है, lot of political commentaries. Those of you who have geography background, you understand one more person called as Nikolai Spikeman. Nikolai Spikeman, another man who has talked about the importance of Indian Ocean. So historically, Indian Ocean has not played a very big role in conflicts like in Atlantic Ocean and Pacific Ocean. But theories and commentary says the Indian Ocean is very, very important. Okay. Now, moving on. For much of the Cold War and in the early phases of globalization, for much of the Cold War and the early phases of globalization, I'm talking about post-World War II. Okay. Pacific, Northern Pacific has been important in American strategy. Okay, so the Northern Pacific was part of what they called as the Asia-Pacific strategy. Asia-Pacific strategy. In fact, एक US का Pacific Command है. Okay, there are different fleets of US Navy. There is a very specialized fleet called as the Pacific Command. जिसका की headquarters is the Pearl Harbor, Hawaiian Islands. They have also one in the Philippines. Okay, so Asia Pacific has been a very important part of the American strategy. Okay, and इसी को a kind of economic and a type of political military grouping hai. Okay, it's called as the APEC. Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation. So Pacific Ocean, Northern Pacific has been very, very important part of American strategy, and as a part of post-World War II, as part of post-World War II, Atlantic Ocean continues to be important as a element of the NATO priorities. NATO is what? North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So Atlantic Ocean bhi raha hai. Okay, as a part of post-World War II, Atlantic Ocean is also relevant part of the American strategy. Okay, just giving you a brief commentary. If if you look at the geopolitics, which has emerged in the last 70, 80, 100 years, how Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean have been a bit more important compared to the Indian Ocean. Online students, all writing as I speak. All writing as I speak. Yes. Shweta, keeping pace. Yes, Danish. Yes, tell me. Sorry? Economic and political military grouping. It's actually economic grouping. It's an economic grouping, but there are some political military elements also. They call this as the APEC. Geopolitics. Geopolitics, Divya, is essentially the power play as a consequence of geography. Okay, geopolitics. When I say geography, I mean location, resources. I'm talking about borders. I'm talking about trade. The power game that we have in the world that is related to the geography of a place. That is geopolitics. So geopolitics में एक बहुत important element है the location aspect, where what country is. That's geopolitics. Okay? So political relations as a consequence of the geography of a particular region or a place. Yeah, can I move on? Yes, Danish, आप कुछ पूछ रहे थे? Can we say? Okay, Danish, you're asking me something? Ask me. Ask me. Okay, Krishna, Bhavani, good morning. Abhishek, good morning. Anup. Okay, let's move on then. Okay? Okay, got the answer. Fine. So now what happened was, starting from approximately early 2000 में, there was a perceptible shift in the US strategy. Okay, so अभी तक क्या था? Pacific Ocean important था, and important was Atlantic Ocean. But starting early 2000, okay, there was a perceptible shift in the US strategy. So it was during the Obama government, Obama times, and at that time, the Secretary of State of US was Hillary Clinton. Okay. So during this time, what happened was, they were witnessing the rapid rise of China. Okay, and rapid rise of China, both in terms of economic rise, okay, and also in terms of its military ambitions. And with this rapid rise in China, okay, China was very rapidly consolidating its influence. Okay, China was rapidly consolidating its influence in East China Sea, in the South China Sea, and also, okay, in the Indian Ocean. ये चाइना ने शुरू कर दिया था बहुत rapidly. Okay, so 1990s में China is doing this, and early 2000 में this is becoming more and more evident. Okay, and in those times, one of the documents of China, okay, got talked about, where China is talking about the string of pearls, strategy. In string of pearls strategy, the whole objective was to dominate, okay, the Indian Ocean geopolitics. String of pearls ka strategy ye tha that China wanted to dominate the Indian Ocean geopolitics and Indian Ocean's economy and trade. Indian Ocean's economy and trade. So with this in background, okay, what Obama did was, all of you keeping pace? All of you, देखो, geopolitics को ना आप story form में ही समझ सकते हैं. It's not simply writing down facts. Okay, आपको background समझना होगा, what's happening, how things are changing. So given this background, all keeping pace, all of you? Yes, Kiran? Yes. Okay, Shweta, I hope you have caught up now. Yes, okay. So what happened in this was, okay, Obama gave the idea of rebalancing the American strategy. Okay, and he coined a word, pivot to Asia. He coined a word, pivot Asia. Okay, pivot to Asia was that the whole fulcrum of economy, the whole fulcrum of the geopolitics is now shifting towards, okay, Asia. Okay, when I say pivot to Asia, okay, three important areas come into play. It is East Asia, जिसमें कि China is important, South Asia, okay, where India is important, and Central Asia, where definitely things were building up. Okay, so Obama says that we have to pivot towards Asia. Okay, and in this pivot towards Asia, okay, Hillary Clinton officially starts talking about the concept of Indo-Pacific. The concept of Indo-Pacific. The concept of Indo-Pacific. So write down something here. Okay, write down something here. Starting from the 21st century, the beginnings of 21st century, Indo-Pacific became an increasingly pivotal and multipolar region. Indo-Pacific became increasingly a pivotal and multipolar region with multiple stakeholders. The region had strategic importance for the new world order. And therefore, the US intend to expand its influence westwards from the Pacific. To extend westwards from the Pacific. The Indian Ocean was increasingly seen as the natural geographical extension of Western Pacific. US under the Secretary of State Hillary Clinton declared, the US under Hillary Clinton, who was the Secretary of State. Secretary of State of US is something like India's Home Minister, the next powerful man after the country's head. Okay? So Secretary of State Hillary Clinton declared that US had interests in securing 1, 2, 3, 4 likho. Number 1, security alliances in Indo-Pacific. Number 2, deepening working relationships with emerging powers. with emerging powers, including China and India, Number 3, engaging regional institutions, regional multilateral institutions, engaging regional multilateral institutions like ASEAN or IORA. Number 4, expanding trade and investments. Number 5, expanding military presence. In the Indian Ocean. And number 6, advancing democracy and human rights. Advancing democracy and human rights. ठीक है? So Indo-Pacific है क्या essentially? Indo-Pacific is कि Pacific का जो western part है उसको आप extend कर रहे हो into the Indian Ocean. So now the Indian Ocean now becomes a part of the larger American strategy. That's how this word Indo-Pacific was coined, and it has now become a very important phrase in geopolitics for last almost more than 1 decade now. Right on. With this, the Indo-Pacific as a component of geopolitics, as a component of the geopolitics, has become the most sought after region, has been one of the most sought after region for more than a decade now. ठीक है? Next लिखो. अच्छा, by the way, you should have an idea about the years, okay? Obama की जो बात कर रहे हैं, this is 2009, 2010 की बात हो रही है, ठीक है? 2009, 2010 Obama. Okay, always have an idea about the time. Okay, and next what happens is the coming of Donald Trump. Okay, write down. In the times of Donald Trump, that is 2017-18 की बात हो रही है. The coming of Donald Trump, Indo-Pacific as a concept, was a key driver in Trump's strategic decisions. In countering the rise of China. Okay, so this led to strengthening of the Quad. I hope you know what the Quad, right? US, India, Australia, Japan. Led to the strengthening of the Quad with the objective of FOIP बोलते हैं, Free and Open Indo-Pacific. The objective of FOIP, Free and Open Indo-Pacific. So it's like a very much American continuity in geopolitics. Obama ने शुरू किया, Hillary Clinton defines it, and Trump is now almost implementing it. Okay, key driver of Trump was Indo-Pacific. कि Quad को बनाएंगे, strong बनाएंगे. Will ensure that the South China Sea में China is constrained there and confined there. He ensures that the US Navy ka fleets become more active in the Indian Ocean. Again, all of this under the idea called as FOIP, which is Free and Open Indo-Pacific. Okay, next slide down. The key elements of, ये important देखो, अब जो Indo-Pacific बात करते हैं ना, when talk about Indo-Pacific, okay, you must know that what does Indo-Pacific, Free and Open Indo-Pacific, what does it mean to US? what does it mean to India? And what does it mean to others? Okay, US ने define किया idea and US is taking it forward. But what US says is not necessarily same as what India says. Okay, what others, ASEAN countries are saying, or what China is saying is again not same as India's. So India का अपना एक Indo-Pacific thinking है. And even before Indo-Pacific came in, India always talked about Indian Ocean Rim Association की बात हो रही थी. Okay, India has always talked about the BIMSTEC is a very old concept. कोई नया तो है नहीं. The Indo-Pacific may have become important. Indian Ocean becomes important for US probably now, but India का तो old history रहा है ना. We have had engaged there. So what is the US vision of Indo-Pacific is not necessarily same as the Indian objectives and vision or that of something. Or इसी से you will understand what is India trying to do here. India के क्या goals हैं, India's की क्या approach है, is very different from what is being talked about by the others. Okay, so you have to have that clarity. So I gave the history of Indo-Pacific now. Okay, now क्या लिखा आपने heading क्या लिखा? Okay, so now we'll talk about the US interpretation of Indo-Pacific. Okay, strategic US interpretation of Indo-Pacific strategic interests. Indo-Pacific strategic interests. अच्छा, before this I forgot. एक box में लिख दो. Okay, is before I done this one, add in box. The importance of Indo-Pacific. The importance of Indo-Pacific. Write down some data on this. Indo-Pacific importance लिखो आप. Okay. Indo-Pacific makes up 65% of the global population. Facts लिखो आप. Indo-Pacific makes up 65% of the global population, 44% of the planet's surface area, 44% of the planet's surface area. Okay, more than 60% of the global GDP. More than 60% of the global GDP, and almost 50% of global trade in goods. Almost 50% of global trade in goods. Okay, it's like, you know, the bulk of humanity and trade yahi chal raha hai, Indo-Pacific. Okay, more than almost 50% of the global trade in goods, almost 60% of the global GDP. Right, further, okay, the Indo-Pacific is a wealthy market, and is the center of international supply networks. It is at the center of international supply networks. The Indo-Pacific has some of the most valuable SLOCs. The Indo-Pacific has some of the most valuable SLOC. What's SLOC? The lines of communication. Some of the most valuable SLOCs, the lines of communication. It has vast natural resources. It has vast natural resources. Okay. Oil and gas. It has got methane hydrates. Ocean floor में they're called as fire ice. Is a methane जो crystallize होके ocean floor में. It's called as methane hydrates. Is a source of future energy. Methane hydrates, also called as fire ice. It has seabed minerals. I think you know about polymetallic nodules. Okay, PMNs. It has seabed minerals, PMNs. Okay, it has immense amount of fisheries. It has immense amount of fisheries. Okay, Indo-Pacific is environmentally rich and also environmentally sensitive. It is environmentally rich and environmentally sensitive region. So coral reefs, okay, mangrove forests, coral reefs, mangrove forests, rich estuaries, environmentally बहुत rich है, estuaries, and it's also threatened by climate change based disasters. It's also threatened by climate change based disasters, such as cyclones हैं, यहाँ पर sea level rise है, cyclone sea level rise. उसके बाद the Indo-Pacific is also a zone of economic disparities. Is also a zone of economic disparities. Some of the richest nations यहाँ पर हैं, China, Hong Kong, okay, Singapore, rich nations. And we also have some of the poorest nations also. Island nations हैं, African nations हैं. It's a region of economic disparities. और इसके वजह से this area has lot of illegal activities also. It has lot of illegal activities. Smuggling है, human trafficking है, smuggling, human trafficking. Piracy problems are here. Hi Rohit, good morning. Rajdeep, good morning. Okay, piracy problems and IUU. IUU is illegal, okay, unreported, unregulated fishing. It is IUU fishing. Illegal, unregulated, and unreported fishing. Unreported fishing. Okay. इसके अलावा, this is a zone of conflicts, of future conflicts. Zone of possible future conflicts. In fact, Indian Ocean can become the future, okay, proxy war battleground. It can become the future proxy war battleground. Okay, the US, China, India, Pakistan, Iran. Okay, and of course, you know, the historical conflicts related to the South China Seas, including the historical conflicts related to the South China Sea. Okay? So a brief paragraph on the importance of the Indo-Pacific. Indo-Pacific is Pacific and the western extension into the Indian Ocean. इसके एरिया का क्या इंपॉर्टेंस है? The numbers and facts, figures, try using it in the answers. It makes your answer powerful. Okay. Now let's move on to what is the US interpretation of Indo-Pacific. What is the US interpretation of Indo-Pacific? Okay. Now it's 4 or 5 elements. The US, okay, it talks about free, open Indo-Pacific. Free, open Indo-Pacific, but with American dominance. It talks about free, open Indo-Pacific with American dominance. Okay, इसमें primacy है, primacy of American geopolitical interests. Primacy of American geopolitical interests. Okay, the moment I say American interest hai, a very important component is, okay, it is talking about, okay, containment of China. It talks about containment of China. ये important strategic element है of America. Primacy of American geopolitical interests and containment of China. Okay, it sees Indian Ocean as an extension of the Pacific, okay, theater. पैसिफिक थिएटर का मतलब है तो पैसिफिक का जो मिलिट्री सिग्निफिकेंस है, it sees Indian Ocean as extension of this. If you look at all of this, somewhere there is a primacy of American military interests. American military interest. Okay? So and in top of it, the US Indo-Pacific, US Indo-Pacific is more exclusionary. It is more exclusionary. What it means to say is, that US का intention है to establish a rule-based Indo-Pacific engagement and exclude anybody who does not, to establish a rule-based Indo-Pacific engagement and to exclude anybody who does not comply with the rules and strategy. Comply with the rules and strategy. And remember this, within bracket mention, all of this is strongly centered around excluding and countering the Chinese rise. Excluding and countering the Chinese rise. ठीक है? जो भी कंट्री अमेरिकन स्ट्रेटजी और कोड ऑफ कंडक्ट को फॉलो नहीं करेगा उसको एक्सक्लूड कर देंगे. एंड इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट, फॉर यूएस इंडो पैसिफिक द एक्सटेंट इज अप टू द बे ऑफ बंगाल. For US Indo-Pacific, the extent is up to the Bay of Bengal. Is it fine, all of you? So US ka, there is a strong military element to it. Although it talks about economic growth, democracy, human rights, somewhere unka military wala angle stronger hai. The security, military is a better word hoga. That is talking about the security dimensions as more important. Or ye important hai that it is about containment of China. It's about containment of China. Okay? Next one. What is the ASEAN Indo-Pacific perspective? The ASEAN is a very important player. The ASEAN Indo-Pacific perspective kya hai? So it is in conflict with the US strategy. It is in conflict with the US strategy. Because remember, ASEAN का जो growth है, power है, it has largely been financed by China. ASEAN would not be what it is if it was not properly financed and supported by China. So ASEAN is more pro-China. It's more about the economic interests. While trying to expand Chinese security concerns. While trying to protect Chinese security concerns. At the same time, ASEAN wants to balance Chinese, ASEAN countries or ASEAN perspective is wants to balance Chinese with the collaboration of India. With the collaboration of India. Okay. And ASEAN does not really trust, it does not really trust or rely on the US perspective. Because for the ASEAN, US is ambiguous. Okay, खासकर post Trump ने क्या किया? They got into Afghanistan, they withdrew from Afghanistan. They have Obama के time में they started withdrawing from Iraq. Okay, so ASEAN are very, very careful here. US आएगा, जब मर्जी चला जाएगा. What will happen to us? So ASEAN does not really want to rely on the American shield or American theater. So ASEAN wants कि China का role रहे. China should be part of the process, and it sees India more as a counterbalance. Okay, so not so much with the US military or security strategy. Okay, and remember ASEAN का ज़्यादा economic element है, rather than too much of military dimension. Okay. Okay. Now, what is the Indian perspective? What is the Indian perspective? Number one is, historically, India has always seen itself as, a key pillar, a key player. India has seen itself as a key player in the Indian Ocean. But hardly any presence in the Pacific. India का कोई fleet वहां नहीं है, कोई shipping systems नहीं है वहां पर. Okay, India does not see itself as a player in the Western Pacific. I remember as a counter to American, एक बार जो SS Paul Jones American aircraft carrier entered into Indian waters, India sent its navy to South China Sea, but then it realized कि it is beyond its game. It came back from there. तो इंडिया का पैसिफिक में कोई ऐसा प्रेजेंस नहीं है, nothing of any significance. ठीक है? But Indian Ocean has always been part of India's strategy. Next point लिखूंगा. India sees its role as more inclusive. India sees its role as more inclusive. And India is committed to provide. ये तीन word important है. Provide, number one, open. When we say open, it is absence of any, when you say open, it's absence of any, okay, hegemony, absence of any hegemony, including that of US or China. Including that of US or China. US का Navy and China का plan बोलते हैं, PLAN, People's Liberation Army and Navy. Okay. So India wants Indian Ocean to be open. Open means no hegemony, किसी की dominance नहीं होनी चाहिए यहाँ. Neither US nor China. Number two is integrated. India sees it as, is committed to providing the integrated, okay, development of. This integrated means it includes all the countries. It includes all the countries, including ASEAN, and also ASEAN, South Asia, and also Africa. For India, Indo-Pacific is up to African coast. Okay, so open, integrated. Okay, or integrated में I said all economies, not only ASEAN centric, not only US centric. And third is balanced. Third is balanced. Balanced is a commitment to multipolar world and multipolar Asia. Commitment to multipolar world and multipolar Asia. Isme ki India looks at the role of Australia, role of Japan, role of Australia, role of Japan, ASEAN and China. ASEAN and China. So India का Indo-Pacific vision जो है, India's Indo-Pacific vision, okay, is more democratic. It is more democratic. And not to convert the Indo-Pacific into an American lake. And not to convert Indo-Pacific into an American lake. जो अमेरिका का डायमेंशन है, they want their presence and their rule-based order, not make it into a American lake. India refuses to see US as a projecting power. India refuses to see US as the projecting power. And not build military groupings, and not build military groupings. Okay. At same time, India's objective is to balance rising China. India's objective is to balance rising China and counteract the strings of pearls policy. Counteract the string of pearls policy. String of pearls policy. Okay? This is the vision of, okay. So under this, India has launched its Sagar project. India has launched its Sagar project and Project Mausam. Sagar project and Project Mausam. India's priorities includes, next point, India's priority includes securing Indo-Pacific from conflicts. The Indian Ocean should be a zone of peace. Securing Indo-Pacific from conflicts. So Indian Ocean as a zone of peace. Number one. Number two is India's naval presence as part of security architecture. India's naval presence as a part of Indian Ocean security architecture. जिसमें कि क्वाड हो गया, क्वाड, and India's active role in the naval military exercises. Naval and military exercises. Third is securing India's neighborhood. Securing India's neighborhood. And the Indian Ocean Islands as okay, कॉमा के अंदर रखना, net security provider. दोबारा डिस्कस करेंगे हम आपको, as the net security provider. ये बार बार डिस्कशन में आया है. India sees itself as a net security provider. So we will be like the umbrella security agency for India's neighborhood and the islands of the Indian Ocean. Okay. Number 4, next point. To address the non-traditional issues. To address non-traditional issues, which includes human trafficking, piracy, climate change issues, natural disasters, IUU, illegal, unregulated, unreported fishing, IUU, and also marine pollution. Okay. And next is, okay, for expanding its MDA, marine domain awareness. India's role in expanding its MDA, marine domain awareness. Basically, okay, India should play a very active role in knowing whatever is happening in an ocean, using surveillance, using satellites. Like, write down. What is MDA, Liko? What's MDA? It is effective information and knowledge sharing. It's effective information and knowledge sharing of all conditions and activities, associated with the Indo-Pacific, maritime environment. Indo-Pacific maritime environment. Okay. All that, next sentence, all that which can impact safety, security, economy or environment. Safety, security, economy or environment. India wants to have full control on this marine domain awareness. Okay. For this, India intends to build a network of information, okay, sharing hubs, satellite infrastructure, and multilateral intelligence gathering and sharing. Multilateral intelligence gathering and sharing. Multilateral intelligence gathering and sharing. Okay. So India का जो Indian Ocean or Indo-Pacific strategy है, it is very different from what China or ASEAN talks about or what the US talks about. The key words आप याद रखना. Okay, non-traditional security है, marine domain awareness है, India as a net security provider है, and plus we're talking about balancing, not countering. We say balancing the Chinese ambitions. Okay, अब China का पता होना चाहिए आपको that in Indian Ocean, okay, China has this policy called as the string of pearls policy. Okay, जिसमें कि it's trying to control, okay, the ports, islands. Okay, it's trying to establish, okay, military bases. It's trying to establish a spying, okay, bases. Okay, so China का ये string of pearls, and the string of pearls strategy जो है, somewhere it has two objectives. One is containment, containment of India hai, and second is securing Indian Ocean, okay, for China. Securing Indian Ocean for China. Okay, so under this, China already has bases in Sri Lanka. It has base in Djibouti. It has base in Myanmar. Okay, and it also has a base in Pakistan. Pakistan mein we have the Gwadar port. Sorry, yeah, Gwadar port. Sri Lanka mein it's Hanbantota port. Okay, Djibouti, it has a massive sea base now. Djibouti mein it has a, in fact, it has launched its aircraft carrier also here. Djibouti is at the Horn of Africa. Horn of Africa, or Myanmar maybe it has its base. So India is trying to counter these bases, okay, which India sees as, or recently the naval, military survey vessel of China was also in Sri Lanka, okay, which India greatly objected to. Okay, so India ka jo Indo-Pacific strategy hai, somewhere is trying to balance the Chinese, okay, elements of security and military rise. ठीक है? इसका दो objective vesting of pearls का. Containment of India is one objective. Second is the securing the Indian Ocean for itself, for China. All fine here, all of you? What is India's? Okay. Now, you can write down what is this, okay, what do you mean by India as a net a security provider? What is this idea of India? India as a net security provider. This is a very ambitious plan. India as a net security provider. All of you online, are you all keeping pace with me? Online students, are you all keeping pace with me? Yes? Notes लिख पा रहे हैं आप लोग? Yes, yes, absolutely. Okay, Swaraj, absolutely. ये सारा important आपके लिए geography में भी होगा, because geopolitics is very much part of geography. Use all of this wherever you can in even geography answers. Yes, that's one reason why IR is natural to me. Okay, fine, excellent. Fine, Krishna, excellent. Okay, now let's move and talk about what is India as a net security provider. Now see, one is that traditionally, India sees a natural role, for itself in Indian Ocean. Okay, why? Because Indian Ocean mein, India is among the largest country. Okay, India is at the head of Indian Ocean. Okay, and India traditionally has had the largest navy presence. India has had the largest navy presence. India ka almost more than 2 million square kilometer of EEZ hai. That's a pretty large EEZ. Okay, so India has always seen itself as, okay, a natural player in the Indian Ocean. It's almost like one of our destined rights hamara. Okay, Indian Ocean, a natural role hai. India is among the largest countries in terms of presence. Why? Because India is at the head of Indian Ocean. India has one of the largest navy presence in Indian Ocean, and India has a very large EEZ, more than 2 million square kilometers of EEZ. Now, India's trade and security, okay, depends on India's engagement in Indian Ocean. Okay, India's engagement in Indian Ocean. And if you are aware of this, okay, almost more than 80% of India's trade, okay, is Indian Ocean. 80% of India's trade is Indian Ocean. Okay. इसके अलावा, if you look at the energy trade, if you look at the large cities, except for Delhi, okay, otherwise the mega cities are along the coast. You have got Kolkata, you have got Chennai, you have Mumbai on this side. Okay, so largest cities हैं. Okay, and India का जो neighborhood है, India's neighborhood is also, okay, largely the Indian Ocean littoral countries. Indian Ocean littoral countries. ठीक है? Sri Lanka, Maldives, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Myanmar. Okay, so India का जो neighborhood है, so also, okay, more or less the Indian Ocean littoral countries. Okay, and also the ocean environment, okay, directly impacts India. The ocean environment also directly impacts India. Directly impacts India. Okay, and rise of China, both in terms of economy and in terms of military, okay, has been a concern for India. Has been a concern. We will not say China as a threat, but China as a challenge, China as a concern. Okay, and this is linked to the Indian Ocean trade. It is linked to the Indian Ocean trade. अच्छा, India का proximity है. India's proximity to three most important maritime choke points. India's proximity. It is near proximity to the three most important maritime choke points. I hope you know what we mean by choke point. CHOK. Choke point क्या है? So narrow shipping passages हैं, okay, which are very valuable for global trade. Okay, what are these three important choke points? One is the Bab el-Mandab between the Red Sea and the Arabian Sea. Bab el-Mandab and Suez, ये passage pass में है. We have the Strait of Hormuz. Hormuz is Persian Gulf and Arabian Sea. And the third important one is Malacca, the Strait of the Malacca Strait. ये तीन choke points इंडिया के एकदम vicinity में, इंडिया के पास में. Bab el-Mandab and Suez. Bab el-Mandab, Suez, this is the Red Sea and the Arabian Sea. The Strait of Hormuz, this is Persian Gulf and the Arabian Sea. And Malacca Strait between the islands of Indonesia and Malaysia. Yes, correct, Ayush, correct. So if you know a bit of map here, is something of this kind. So this is the Malacca Strait here. Okay, this passageway is the Hormuz, and this is the Bab el-Mandab. Okay, this is the Red Sea, Arabian Sea. This is Bab el-Mandab, the Gate of Tears. Bab el-Mandab. This is the Hormuz between Persian Gulf and Arabian Sea, Oman and Iran. And this is the Malacca Strait. Okay, and India एकदम इसी तीनों के पास में है. So anything happening here directly impacts India. और ये पूरा Indian Ocean के ये India उसके head में है, right above. Look at the countries. India has one of the largest EEZs to compare the countries. So that's why I'm saying India अपने आप को एक natural player मानता है in the Indian Ocean. Okay, India as a natural player in the Indian Ocean. It's almost like what we inherit as a consequence of our geopolitical location. Is what we inherit as a part of our geopolitical location. All done? Okay. Now, we continue on this. We continue on this. Okay. Now, with the objective of, next slide down, with the objective of securing India's interest, the objective of securing India's interest, and also safeguarding the aligned interests of its neighboring countries and island nations. India sees itself as a security provider for Indian Ocean. India sees itself as a security provider for the Indian Ocean. Okay. See, if you talk about the countries, think of Maldives, Seychelles, Mauritius, or Sri Lanka, or islands, okay, or countries like Sudan, okay, countries like Somalia or Tanzania and Kenya, okay, or even those smaller nations that we have like East Timor Sea, okay, talk about Indonesia. India sees that is सबके comparison में India has a huge asymmetry in terms of interests. What concerns us is much, much more than what concerns all of them. And plus, India का एक traditional role रहा है. We see ourselves as one of the security providers. Write down. It was in 2009. I'm giving a bit of history here. It was in 2009 Shangri-La Dialogue. It was in 2009 Shangri-La Dialogue. The Defense Secretary of the US. The Defense Secretary of US. His name Robert Gates. The Defense Secretary of US, Robert Gates, repeated the idea that India was a partner and net security provider. India was a partner and net security provider in the Indian Ocean. This was reaffirmed by, next point, this was reaffirmed by Dr. Manmohan Singh in 2013. It was reaffirmed by Dr. Manmohan Singh in 2013 that with its conventional strategic, with its conventional, strategic, and non-traditional challenges, with its conventional, strategic, and non-traditional challenges, India assumes the responsibility of providing stability in the Indian Ocean region. Stability in the Indian Ocean region. And therefore become the net provider of security. Very important. More as a strategic obligation. Rather than a matter of choice. this role of India has now been part of India's, this role of India has now been part of India's larger security strategic thinking, larger security and strategic thinking. Okay. When I say net security provider, okay, right further, the scope of India as net security provider, the scope of India as net security provider has been outlined by our present Prime Minister, Narendra Modi ji. Okay, when he chaired the Security Council session, he chaired the Security Council session of the UN during India's presidency. India upholds the primacy of UNCLOS. India upholds the primacy of UNCLOS. अब देखो UNCLOS जो है ना, ये थोड़ा डिबेटेड है. यूएस ने इसे रेटिफाई नहीं किया अभी तक, and China has increasingly been challenging UNCLOS because under UNCLOS एक चाइना का arbitration हुआ था where they kind of ticked off a resolution against China because of its South China Sea conflicts. So in recent years, China has been more against UNCLOS, but India says that we abide by UNCLOS. UNCLOS is the best rule-based system we have for managing our maritime concerns and global maritime security. Okay, write down, please, write down. Okay, within bracket likho aap. UNCLOS is increasingly being resisted by China. UNCLOS is increasingly being resisted by China. Okay. Next one likho aap. As net provider of security, India is committed to the following 5 principles. Number 1, resolving maritime disputes according to international law. Number 2, removing barriers to promote legitimate maritime trade. Number 3, cooperation between nations to deal with maritime threats. Posed by non-state actors. And natural disasters. Number 4, protecting maritime environment. And number 5 is responsible maritime connectivity. Okay, so India का एक natural role है. India has an interest India has the capability, okay, and India is going to follow a rule-based system under UNCLOS, under the 5 principles. Right, next, under or as net provider of security, as net provider of security for Indian Ocean region, India's role of Navy, India's role of its Navy in anti-piracy patrolling, and dealing with disasters and environmental problems, with enhanced maritime domain awareness. India also sees itself as taking initiative in disaster interventions, like in cyclones or tsunamis, in the Indian Ocean, littoral countries. India as the first responder. In times of crisis. Okay, next slide down. Under maritime domain awareness, India supports initiatives like IMAC, Information Management Analysis Center. IMAC, Information Management Analysis Center, and IFC-IOR. IFC is Information Fusion Center. For Indian Ocean region. It's basically some kind of a coastal and maritime surveillance system. It's a kind of coastal and maritime surveillance system for situation awareness. Okay? So that's about India as the net security provider of Indian Ocean. Okay. Now write down, the following are the challenges. In India's vision of Indo-Pacific. The following are the challenges in India's vision of Indo-Pacific and as net security provider. In Indian Ocean. Following are the challenges. So, 3-4 points. Number 1 is, okay, countering plan, PLAN. Plan is what? China's People Liberation Army and Navy. Countering plan. because plan जो चाइना का नेवी है, they have got now 5 aircraft carriers, very well developed submarine systems and nuclear vessels. They already have 5 major military bases across Indian Ocean. It has 5. How many aircraft carriers India has? एक. India has only 1 aircraft carrier. विक्रमादित्य. और एक बन रहा है hopefully विक्रांत, indigenous. China का 5 है and all of them are indigenous ones. China has a battery of submarines now, along with nuclear power vessels. China has 5 major military bases Indian Ocean में, naval military bases Indian Ocean में. So countering plan will be in China. Okay, will be one challenge. Okay, one. Number 2, okay, also countering Pakistan Navy. Countering Pakistan Navy. Okay, now Pakistan Navy is kind of specializing in underwater warfare. Okay, along with coordination with China, it's specializing in developing its underwater warfare, undersea warfare. Okay, it has support of Turkey, it has support of China. Okay, submarines, fast attack craft and so on. ये concern है India के लिए. Third is, okay, the shifting position of US. The shifting position of US. And particularly since, okay, Trump's presidency. Okay, so in some ways, US is seeing India more as an extended partner. India will do the dirty work for US in Indian Ocean. वो रहेगा US का theater, India is doing the dirty work. Okay, and problem with this is you never know how US withdraws. ठीक है? So US का जो position है, when it has withdrawn from Afghanistan, withdrawn from Iraq, okay, you never know what it does here. Okay, and US is not very committed to sharing military technologies or intelligence with India. Sharing military technologies or intelligence with India. तो ये concern है. Okay. The fourth concern is the financing. Fourth concern is financing. Because India has a fairly large defense budget. India has a fairly large defense budget. Kitna? Almost, I think, 2 to 3% of GDP hai abhi, right now, of the budget, sorry. Okay, but it is still small compared to, China's spending. In terms of spending, maybe, yes. Yes. It's still small compared to China. And India has to rapidly modernize its aging fleets. India में काफी disasters हुए हैं, submarine fire हुआ है. Okay, we have to modernize our fleet. India needs to have indigenous, okay, making of aircraft carriers. So finance and cost is a very important issue for India. And next is, okay, the non-traditional threats. The non-traditional threats are more of a menace for India. मतलब piracy, smuggling, human trafficking. Okay. इसके अलावा India needs okay, a kind of a joint military effort. India needs a kind of joint military effort जो आपका CDS कर रहा था. Okay, but this is still early days for India. कि मिलिट्री, आर्मी और नेवी कोऑर्डिनेट करें, इट स्टिल अर्ली डेज फॉर इंडिया. This and plus developing its naval bases, developing and modernizing its naval bases. Okay, अंडमान निकोबार में, मॉरिशियस में, सेशेल्स में. Okay, these are some of the challenges for India as a net security provider. I can see this as a proper question for you. Indeed, define India's role. क्या challenges हैं Indian Ocean में, Indo-Pacific में? Okay. Any questions online? Anybody? Any questions? What am I referring? There is one report. I'll suggest अगर आप ये पढ़ पाए, नेट में ही है. Okay. There is this report. I took this report from the ORF. Report, it says understanding America's report नाम लिख लीजिए please. Understanding America's enduring interest in Indo-Pacific. Understanding America's enduring interest in Indo-Pacific. This is an article by Harsh Pant and Anant Singh Maan. Harsh Pant and Anant Singh Maan. अगर आपको दिख रहा है ये वाला, it's there. It's on. This is a issue of ORF itself. Okay, it's a 10-15 page का document है, pretty well given. एक ये वाला document है, and और एक I was seeing one article by Colonel Dheeraj Kumar. Colonel Dheeraj Kumar. He writes for United Service Institution of India. Colonel Dheeraj Kumar. An article's name is Indian Ocean Region. Indian Ocean Region. India as net security provider, the way ahead. Indian Ocean Region, India as net security provider, the way ahead. ये भी थोड़ा सा लंबा डॉक्यूमेंट है, about 7, 8, 10 pages का डॉक्यूमेंट है, but it gives a very good perspective of what India is trying to aspire and what are the challenges. Colonel Dheeraj Kumar. Colonel Dheeraj Kumar. It's on the net. आप Google search करोगे, you'll get these articles. Not a problem. Download this. Okay. This plus, of course, whatever else I could have added from different sources, I'm doing it. Okay. Let me see if I have missed out anything else. India's vision, Sagar. Okay. Security and growth for all. अच्छा, एक चीज आप ऐड कर सकते हो, that India's role in, as you can just add a point, India's role in Indo-Pacific, India's role in Indo-Pacific is partly to counter China's maritime Silk Route and China-led RCEP, to counter China's maritime Silk Route and China-led RCEP. I hope you know the regional cooperation economic wala jo hai, RCEP. Some of the initiatives, I was compiling it for you. Some of the initiatives under India as net security provider. Some of the initiative under India as net security provider क्या hai? One is a defense cooperation with nations defense cooperation with nations like Maldives, Mauritius, Seychelles, Madagascar, and Mozambique. Maldives, Mauritius, Seychelles, Madagascar, and Mozambique. Number 2 is India's engagement in IORA, Indian Ocean Rim Association. India's engagement in IORA. Then the Indian Ocean Naval Symposium is like a summit. Number three is Indian Ocean Naval Symposium is like a summit called as IONS, IONS, Indian Ocean Naval Symposium. Number 3 is naval exercises like Milan, MILN, Milan, for deeper defense cooperation. Next is initiatives like Sagar. Sagar is security and growth for all in the region. Initiatives like Sagar, SAGAR, security and growth for all in the region. Next is Project Mausam. And proposed Asia-Africa Growth Corridor. Asia-Africa Growth Corridor. Okay. And next is Coordinated Patrol, CORPAT. CORPAT. CORPAT is Coordinated Patrol with Indonesia, Thailand, Myanmar, and Bangladesh. Okay, now let's take up some of the discussions of bilateral issues. I'll start with Indian and neighborhood. I'll go towards the great powers eventually. I've kind of given a fairly broad canvas to all of you. Now we'll talk about India's bilateral relations. अच्छा, एक चीज याद रहे, in bilateral relations, they rarely go into too much of history. Okay, so I will not teach you the entire history, shuru se what happened with Sri Lanka. I'll talk about the more contemporary ones. Isme, the questions are more, contemporary ones. More recent wala discussion is required bilateral mein. Bilateral mein, you must know India and neighborhood. आपके syllabus में भी ये mentioned है, which means Sri Lanka, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Pakistan, Maldives, Myanmar, and Afghanistan. Afghanistan is a part of India's neighborhood. Okay, isme you don't have to pay equal attention to all of them. Some are more important, others will have a bit more superficial discussion. I repeat: Sri Lanka, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Pakistan, Maldives, Myanmar, and Afghanistan. My guess, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh ज़्यादा important होने वाला है. Reason being, Bangladesh is the only South Asian country which has been invited to G20. Not a G20 nation, but हमने invite किया है along with some of the African nations. Okay, Bangladesh is a very important player in India's Indian Ocean strategy, and Sri Lanka, because of the concerns that we have, उनका economic turmoil हुआ है. Okay, so ये दो बहुत important countries हैं, and of course we will need to have some discussions on Bhutan. Bhutan, because China has become very aggressive here, and India has the responsibility of Air Force, Army. Bhutan का अपना Air Force है नहीं. Okay, so ये तीन ज़्यादा important है. Questions on Pakistan are rarely about any one specific issue. वो general broad रहता है. Okay, so Pakistan तो हमेशा important रहेगा, but you need not go too much into this. That's my suggestion. And Afghanistan, because of the changing dynamics and the concerns of the future. So these are my priorities I'll take up. Baki I'll have a mention. Of course, China is अलग level में पढ़ेंगे. Neighborhood में China, US, Russia, we enter that as great powers. Right now, I'll take up this one. Okay? Let us start with Sri Lanka. India, Sri Lanka. So a quick, brief discussion. So Sri Lanka has, again, a very old tradition here. A very old tradition. There is a lot of cultural, history of India and Sri Lanka. Cultural history of India and Sri Lanka. We have this Tamil connection because of Tamil population in Sri Lanka. एक Tamil connection है India का. Okay, and of course we had this traumatic history with Sri Lanka because of LTTE, because of IPKF. IPKF 1987-88 की बात हो रही है. Okay. And IPKF का रोल खत्म हुआ था 1991 में, by VP Singh. He called off the IPKF. तो ये IPKF वाला जो history था, it has been very, very traumatic for India. It has one of the major, you can say, failures, in India's role in the neighborhood. So these facts we all know. Old tradition, cultural history, because the Buddhism ka spread. Remember Ashoka, right? He sends his daughter Sanghamitra and all of that. Yes, you know Buddhism hai. Tamil connection hai. Northern and eastern Sri Lanka has Tamil population. So if you look at Sri Lanka, it's something like this. Kuch aisa shape hai. And this is what's called as the Jaffna Peninsula. Jaffna Peninsula hai. So this has Tamil population and parts of this eastern side, northeastern side. So this has an issue. There's some shared connection here. And because of this troubled history, because of the troubled recent history, there are issues related to maritime boundaries and the rights of fishermen. Every recent now and then, the fishermen are at the receiving end. They get arrested, put behind bars, and then we again exchange. So troubled recent history की वजह से, otherwise ऐसा कुछ issue नहीं है. The boundary is very well established. Just that fishermen, it's a statement of some element of discomfort between India and Sri Lanka. If fishermen cross over, they ultimately get harassed. By the time, boundaries and the rights of fishermen. एक island है called as Kachtivu. Kachtivu Island. Now this has been one of those discomfort issues. Kachtivu Island. India is trying to claim this back. Kachchivu, Kachtivu Island. Okay, this India had given to Sri Lanka on some terms, but India is trying to claim this back. ये सब issues na, we call these as irritants. We call these as irritants. Kachtivu Island. Okay, and India shares the Gulf of Mannar, and the Pak Bay. Okay. India shares the Gulf of Mannar and Pak Bay waters with Sri Lanka. Okay, and these areas are rich, environmentally rich. They have coral reefs. Okay, we have fishing resources here. The Gulf of Mannar. Gulf of Mannar is also India's marine biosphere reserve. It is India's marine biosphere reserve, and the Pak Bay. Pak Bay water body inlet hai. It shares with Sri Lanka. Okay. Now, apart from this, what has happened is India-Sri Lanka relationship has been troubled because of the nationalist you can say overtones in Sri Lanka. Okay, where we have the rise of Sinhala politics. And Sinhala politics is very well represented by the Rajpaksha family. दो तीन भाई हैं कि आपस में बांट लिया कंट्री. कभी ये प्राइम मिनिस्टर, कभी वो प्रेसिडेंट, कभी डिफेंस सेक्रेटरी, फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर. The Rajpaksha family, okay, they are Sinhalese, and they tend to see India as one of the challenges. It's more ego thing here. So in recent time, what has happened is that India-Sri Lanka relationship has been troubled, okay, because of the nationalist overtones. Sinhalas are the Sri Lankan Buddhists. Okay, so strong nationalism hai in logon ka, Sri Lanka for Sri Lankans type. So Sinhala politics, okay, this is anti-Tamils. It's also very anti-India. Okay, and because of which they have cultivated the Chinese relations. So China is playing in the troubled waters. Anti-Tamil sentiments hain Sinhala mein, and anti-Indian sentiments hain. So they are cultivating the Chinese relationship. Okay, yes. Sinhalas are an ethnic group. They are the Sri Lankan Buddhists. Because Tamilians are not Buddhists, they're Hindus. There are three major ethnic groups. Sri Lankan Muslims hain, Sri Lankan Tamils hain, and the Sinhalas hain. Sinhalas are the Buddhists, okay, and they don't see Tamil as part of their country, their nation. The fact is, Tamils have not come yesterday, day first day. They're there for centuries. But ek hai ki Sri Lanka for Sinhalas, why Tamils are here? Okay, so ye unka fight hai. This is the fight there. Okay, and Sinhalas are the dominant ethnic group. They are the more prosperous ones also. They control the economy, the political system, okay, and the rise of nationalism. Okay, okay. Now, what has happened is China, okay, China has emerged as a major trading partner with Sri Lanka. Okay, and China has invested in Sri Lanka's infrastructure. Okay, plus China has lent aid and development loans development loans, almost 7 to 8 billion dollars का लोन है चाइना का सिर्फ, out of about 60 billion dollar external debts of Sri Lanka. External debt. That's a huge number, no? Okay. If you look at the external debt, almost 10-12% of the debt, सिर्फ Chinese debt है. Okay, China has lent development loans, almost 7 to 8 billion dollar का loan है. Okay, out of almost 60 billion dollar external debt of Sri Lanka. The huge amount here. ठीक है? इसके अलावा okay, Sri Lanka, China has built and managed the Hanban Tota port, and because China defaulted in the loan payment, it has taken control of the port. China has the control. China has now 99 years ka lease hai. It has taken control of more than 15,000 acres of land. एक टाइप का चाइनीज कॉलोनी बन चुका है ये वाला हनबन टोटा पोर्ट. Okay, so all of these are concerns for India. Right under India's nose, okay, China is seeing Sri Lanka as, yes, this is what is your debt trap. यही है the debt trap. The debt trap. Under the debt trap, it has taken control of the port. Okay, 99 years का lease ले लिया है, and almost more than 15,000 acres is now in control of the China. ठीक है? अच्छा, इसके अलावा श्रीलंका का जो इकोनॉमी है, श्रीलंका's economy is majorly tourism, is majorly exports. Okay, and exports में agriculture products हैं and remittances. Okay, Sri Lanka's economy is largely tourism, exports of agriculture products. Agriculture में, okay, tea is a very important component. Coconut is an important component. They also have rubber. Some amount of rubber भी है. Okay, plus some amount of exports of gemstones भी हैं. Gemstones, in particular, ruby exports. And remittances from the expat Sri Lankan workers outside. So what has happened is the COVID, okay, COVID impacted Sri Lanka's economy because tourism was down, remittances down, and agriculture imports also got impacted. Okay, so COVID impacted. इसके साथ में Sri Lanka had certain fertilizer policy where they kind of banned all chemical fertilizers. Again, an example of too much of nationalism. Okay, मैंने plant भी grow करो तो yoga के साथ grow करो types. ठीक है? So it all impacts. So organic farming, everything is organic करने के चक्कर में their productivity declined. Okay, the production declined. So COVID impact हो गया. Fertilizer policy, because they banned all chemical fertilizers, the agriculture output took a beating. इसके ऊपर में the Ukraine war, so fuel का जो expenditure है, okay, it shot through the roof. Okay, the imports became very, very costly. Okay, and all of this resulted in the Sri Lankan economic crisis. It resulted in Sri Lankan economic crisis, almost meltdown. Sri Lankan economic crisis. Briefly, what's happening with Sri Lanka? I believe most of you know this. Okay. Now, India का role क्या रहा है? India's role क्या रहा है? As of now, India was the first responder. India has extended okay, a loan of almost $4 billion. A loan of almost $4 billion aid दे चुका है इंडिया, and with this IMF is committed to give about 2.5 to 3 billion dollars, but only against guarantee by India. If India can give the assurance, okay. So it's looking at India and China ka assurance. India will become a kind of a guarantor for 2.53 billion dollars का, ठीक है? तो इंडिया का रोल रहा है in helping Sri Lanka reinvent itself. This and this one it has done. Okay, India was also the first responder, among the first responders during the COVID times also. The COVID times, जो COVID vaccine diplomacy था, India plays a role here. Okay. Apart from this, India is also into long term. India is also into long term strategic investments. Long term strategic investments, which includes managing the oil tankers, at managing and constructing oil tankers, oil storage at Trincomalee port. ये IOCL डेवलप कर रहा है श्रीलंका में. Trincomalee port बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. This is considered one of the largest, deepest natural ports of the world. Among the top 5 में आता है Trincomalee port, Trincomalee, Trincomalee port. ये श्रीलंका के नॉर्थ ईस्ट में है. Okay, this is a very, very valuable port. All countries want this port. China wants, India wants, USA wants, and speculations tha that even Saudi Arabia wants this. As a part of its trade expansion, Saudi Arabia said that we can pay $7 billion of your aid, but we want the port for ourselves. Ultimately, it didn't work out for whatever reasons. So it's like this. This is Sri Lanka like this. So Colombo idhar hai, Anbantota idhar hai, और Trincomalee port idhar. Okay, or Trincomalee port is also this Tamil region. Tamil region bhi hai. Okay, so yahan par India has this oil tankers. Oil tankers management construction is done by IOCL. और यहीं पर near Trincomalee port, near Trincomalee port, India is also developing its thermal power plant. Power plant near Trincomalee port. Okay. So India का अब what is India's interests? ये आपका एक facts के लिए बता दिया मैंने. अब इंडिया का इंटरेस्ट क्या है? What is India's interest? India's interest. So Sri Lanka is part of India's neighborhood first policy. Okay, जो neighborhood first policy का Sri Lanka is a very, very important part. Okay, securing Sri Lanka is part of India's Indian Ocean Rim strategy. Because if India wants to control or manage the Indian Ocean trade and security, okay, Sri Lanka is a very important part. Okay, securing Sri Lanka is part of India's Indian Ocean Rim strategy. Okay, Sri Lanka will be an important base for countering a rise of China. Rise of China. India wants to secure the Andaman Sea. India wants to secure the Andaman Sea. Okay. And for securing Andaman Sea, India needs the control of Trincomalee port. Trincomalee port. अभी ये पोर्ट इंडिया को मिला नहीं है. India has just got the rights, construction, maintenance of the oil tankers in Trincomalee. ठीक है. तो अंडमान सी को कंट्रोल करने के लिए दिस इज पार्ट ऑफ द बे ऑफ बंगाल का स्ट्रेटेजी. इंडिया नीड्स त्रिंकोमाली पोर्ट. इसके अलावा देयर इज तमिल इशू विद श्रीलंका. द इशू ऑफ Tamil refugees and the older Tamil insurgency. This is a security dimension. This is a security dimension. ठीक है. इसके अलावा apart from this, this whole idea, the whole idea of developing the South Asia as a trade bloc, as a trade bloc में Sri Lanka is important, and India Sri Lanka का we already have a free trade agreement है, signed in 2000. Okay, as a part of developing South Asia as a trade bloc. Okay, we have India Sri Lanka free trade agreement 2000. ठीक है. 2000. And apart from this, of course, okay, we want to develop the Indian Ocean Rim Association. Indian Ocean Rim Association. तो इसमें आप एक पॉइंट ऐड कर सकते हो. That India is working with Sri Lanka. India is working with Sri Lanka to conclude economic and technology cooperation agreement. India is working with Sri Lanka to conclude economic and technology cooperation agreement, ETCA. ETCA agreement, which will go beyond the India-Sri Lanka free trade agreement. It will go beyond India-Sri Lanka free trade agreement. Because ETCA में a very important component is technology partnership. In ETCA, a very important component is technology partnership. इसके अलावा India Sri Lanka is also committed to joint military exercises, joint military and naval exercises. One is called as Mitra Shakti, and SLINEX, SLINEX, military and naval exercise. Mitra Shakti and SLINEX, SLINEX, Sri Lanka India exercises, SLINEX. Okay, we are doing this. Okay, and then of course, very important here, India has the assurance of implementation of the 13th amendment of Sri Lankan Constitution. 13th amendment of Sri Lankan Constitution. Okay, देखो, this is part of the down within bracket down. 13th amendment of Sri Lanka's constitution is about the devolution of powers to provincial councils. Devolution of powers to provincial councils, and to address the demands of Tamil population. To address the demand of Tamil population. Okay. So Tamils are demanding equality, better representation, justice also. So Sri Lanka has done the amendment, but implement nahi kiya abhi tak. This is one of the concerns. India wants the implementation of this amendment for Tamil right. Okay? So yeah, that's about India, Sri Lanka. Chinese angle. Yeah, that's about it. So fine then, that's for today. Okay, I want to finish off Bhutan and Nepal also. I think I'm going slow, maybe. I don't know. Okay. You think I can go faster? I can go faster. So catch you tomorrow. Okay, thanks for joining in. Bye all of you. नोट्स लिख पा रहे हो आप लोग सब कोई? Yes. Bye all of you. Bye bye.